صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, now as he has settled in Medina, within the first 2 years, he embarks on a journey of marriage. And this marriage in particular is one of the most controversial marriages to happen in Rasulullah's life, for many different reasons. Whether it be about this girl's age or who she is. Her name was Aisha. She was the daughter of Abu Bakr. And there are differences of opinion between the Shia school of thought and the Sunni school of thought on Aisha's position within Islam. But we will be very objective in how we dissect this topic. Now, first of all, the issue of the marriages of the Prophet is a problem in itself. When people who ask about Islam ask us, why did your Prophet marry so many women? Isn't he a spiritual prophet? Isn't he a man of God? If he's a man of God, then why does he give in to his desires? Why did he marry so many women? You know, there are differences of opinion of how many women Rasulullah actually married in his lifetime, but some of those opinions actually go up to a number of 15 wives. Some say 11, some say 12. Of course, when he was with Lady Khadija alayhi salam, for those years, those decades he spent with her, he never married anyone else. Especially that as Islam was rising, Quraysh would offer him women as part of a bribe to stop spreading Islam, and he wouldn't accept that. So to call him a man of desire would be wrong. And this in itself, this measurement that someone who does not indulge in marriage is more spiritual is wrong. First of all, Jesus was 33 years old when he was raised to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Quran mentions. He was 33 years old. In that time, when Rasulullah was 35, he got married to Khadija. He was older than Jesus when he married Khadija. Who knows what Jesus would have done if he carried on the earth? He was so busy with his mission and his objectives. He started at birth. Rasulullah started at 40 years old. Nabi Aisha started from the moment he was born. He started propagating. He spoke as a baby in the cradle. So at 33, he still hadn't been married, and he was raised. Who knows what's going to happen afterwards? This notion that being away from the opposite gender is more spiritual in Islam is wrong. Actually, it used to anger the Prophet when someone would spend the night only in prayer and not be with his wife. Rasulullah would speak against such an act. It would anger him. Now, there are other prophets who did marry. Does that mean Jesus is above them as well? You know, this book by a woman called Alif Shafak, she wrote a book called The 40 Rules of Love. It's an interesting book, but within the book there are so many stories and discrepancies. Although it's a very beautiful and spiritual book, there are many discrepancies that make someone think that to be spiritual, like the main characters of the book, Rumi and Shams al-Tabriz, the famous two Sufis, like to be like them, one, to be like Shams especially, one must not indulge in a relationship with the opposite gender, because Shams is so spiritual and he only thinks of God, so he can't be with a woman. And when they do get him married to a woman at the end of the book, he can't look at her, and she tries to entice him, and he rejects her to the point that out of her sadness she dies. That is not godly. It's not godly to upset your wife or husband because you want to be spiritual and live with God and not come near them. And that's something, a discrepancy that we must notice. Throughout Rasulullah's life, he spoke against it, and his eyes would be really angry when someone would do it. So, Benjamin and Nabi Yusuf, why did they love each other so much? Why were they different than the other brothers? Because the other brothers, they were from different mothers. Benjamin and Yusuf, they were from the same mother. So we know that their father, Yaqub, married other women, like Rasulullah. We know that Nabi Musa married Safura, the daughter of Nabi Shu'aib. But we also know he married other women. Dawood, the king, King David, in the Bible, he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. But no one talks about them. Everyone talks about Rasulullah. Because of this character assassination that's been going on since Rasulullah began his mission. Until now, it still goes on. On our media screens, it still goes on. So then, why did Rasulullah marry all these women? What were his reasons? Rasulullah, as a social reformer, Allah sent down a special prerogative for the Rasul to be able to marry more women for social reasons, political reasons, reasons that were taboo at the time. If the social reformer and the leader of the Muslims would act in this way, then everyone would act. And if he did, it would show that without any shadow of a doubt, this thing was lawful. So that later on, there are no debates on whether is this okay or not. He married her. Khalas, he married her. So, of course we know he married Khadija out of love. But then there are several different women that he married. We have Zainab bin Jahsh that we mentioned a few nights ago. The woman who came to Rasulullah and asked him, can you marry me? Can you marry me to someone? But she was hinting she wanted Rasulullah, remember? And Rasulullah, what did he say? He brought her Zayd al-Hub, his adopted son. Rasulullah's adopted son Zayd, who was Zayd ibn Harith, but he became known as Zayd ibn Muhammad because Rasulullah adopted him and raised him. And she was offended. That was one of the proofs why Sayyidah Khadija would not marry someone from another tribe. She was offended. How could I marry Zayd and I am a princess of Quraysh? So she was offended, but in the end they married. Eventually they divorced. And Zainab was the cousin of Rasulullah. When Zayd divorced Zainab, the command came down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran about being able to marry the wife of an adopted son. At that time, the adopted son, anything to do with adoption would be the same as being a biological son or a biological father. So inheritance would be the same. So the order came down to call your sons by the names of their biological fathers. So again, he stopped being called Zayd ibn Muhammad, and now he was known once again as Zayd ibn Haritha. And Rasulullah, his cousin Zainab, who was now alone and a divorcee, out of mercy for her, and in that he had a hand to play in bringing them together, he married her in his old age. He could have married her much before then, when she wanted him, when he went to Khadija afterwards. So that's Zainab bin Jahsh. Another woman, Salama. Salama is someone who had migrated and left as a Muslim. She left everyone that she knew, her family, her brother, her father. They were all enemies of Rasulullah. And she was widowed. She had no one left, no family. Rasulullah also married her. And by the way, these women were of old age. This woman, Salama, had 4 children. Salama had 4 children and was a widow. Now what would Rasulullah, if he was a man of desire, what would he want with an older woman with 4 children? Why? The daughter of Umar, Hafsa, after the battle of Badr, she lost her husband. Umar came to Rasulullah and told him, my daughter doesn't have a husband, he's going to marry her. Rasulullah told him, I'll marry her. Again, and they're all from different tribes, huh? They're all from different tribes. As much as he can, he's trying to bring them together. You know when they have the world's strongest man and these freak shows when they want to take a heavy truck, for example, and they do it with their beard, right? And they just move back and they move the truck with their beard, right? The more hair that they can wrap around the truck, they can bring it to them closer, right? Rasulullah's grabbing all these tribes and he's, metaphorically speaking, this beard, and he's bringing that truck with it. This ummah, he's trying to move it. All these tribes and their tribal mentality, he's bringing them from all over the place. Juwayriyah, she was the daughter of Harith, one of the leaders of the Jews in Khaybar. Rasulullah married her, and the enemies became his cousins. And they were shocked. He married her. Of course, we have Habiba. Habiba is the daughter of Muawiyah. Habiba Sorry, the sister of Muawiyah, the daughter of Abu Sufyan. And we know Abu Sufyan was the arch enemy of Rasulullah. The daughter of Abu Sufyan, the sister of Muawiyah, was the wife of Rasulullah. If he was doing it out of his own desire, why would he go to the daughter of his arch enemy? Why? She was in fact married to a Muslim man, and the Muslim man then left her and went away with another woman, and now she was by herself. Rasulullah, because he doesn't want to take a headache from Abu Sufyan, and at the same time perhaps his heart would soften, and he doesn't want this woman to be left alone after she came to Islam and a Muslim is the one who left her, he married her, and she loved the Prophet. And all these women, by the way, they all had the choice to leave him. Rasulullah always gave them the choice. If they wanted to leave, they could leave. They didn't want to leave. We even mentioned the slaves of the Rasul and the Imams never wanted to leave after they were free. They didn't want to leave. Likewise, if the Prophet offered her to leave, you think she'd leave? With the greatest of all creation as her husband. And she is a woman of 40 or 50 years old with children. Now a woman who's 20 years old with children should be lucky if someone comes and wants to marry her who doesn't have children himself. Because that's how this community looks towards a woman who is divorced. In that time, 1,400 years ago, Rasulullah is saying, a divorced woman, there is no shame in marrying a divorced woman. Or a woman with children. No, the greatest of all creation marries her. So then it comes to Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr. How old was she really? Because we hear that she was 6 years old. The Prophet of Islam married a 6-year-old, as they tell you on CNN. And if that's true, that may pose a problem. A man in his 50s marrying a woman who is 6 years old. Did this actually happen? Did Rasulullah actually do this? Well, let's see. What did the history book say? This is a narration in al-Bukhari that she was 6 years old when he married her. But if you look out throughout other sources in history, you notice Ibn Ishaq, the historian, he says, and we're going to do some maths here, okay? Because we're figuring out the age, like last time. He says that Aisha became Muslim after 18 people, okay? At what age did Rasulullah begin his public calling? Who can answer that? Anyone? At what age did he begin the public calling? At 43 years old.
1, 2, 3.
Right? At 43 he became public. It was secret before that. At 43 he begins the public calling. People come to Islam. Ibn Ishaq says after 18 people came to Islam, Aisha came to Islam. Okay, Aisha after 18 people. How old must the girl be to make a conscious decision in Islam after she hits puberty? Or personal life. 9 years old. 9 years old is taklif. So it cannot be regarded that she herself chose to become a Muslim before 9 years old. It must have been at least 9 or after 9. Okay, let's say at least 9. So the Prophet is 43. Aisha is 9 years old. And she accepts Islam. The hijrah happened 10 years after that. So how old is Aisha during the hijrah? 19 years old. At least. 18, 19 years old at least. If you want to take Ibn Ishaq's opinion that she became Muslim after 18 people. Okay. If you don't want to accept that, put that aside. There's another book called Al-Tahdib Asma' al-Nawawi. In this book, it's mentioned the sister of Aisha, her name is Asma. It's mentioned that Asma was born 27 years before the hijrah. 27 years before the migration, Asma was born. It also states that Asma is 10 years older than Aisha. So Asma is 10 years older than Aisha, and she's born 27 years before hijrah. So at the time of hijrah, she's how old? 27. If she's 27 at the time of hijrah, and she's 10 years older than Aisha, how old is Aisha during the hijrah? 17. Add 2 years for when the Prophet married her, she's at least 19 years old. See, you gather the sources, you realize she couldn't have been. Shaykh Imran Hussain, a prominent Sunni scholar, he says this hadith is definitely fabricated, because how could she marry at 6 when she hasn't even hit puberty yet? So he cannot even treat her as his wife. This is his view. Someone can also take that. And this hadith in itself, if you look at the way it was narrated in a very ghastly way. Aisha is the one who's narrating it, but look how scary the narration is, okay? She says, I was 6 years old. My mother took me from my swings and toys, and she dressed me up and took me to Muhammad. Imagine this. An old man at 50 years old is waiting for a 6-year-old being dressed up, taken away from her toys and her swings. I mean, does that seem like a logical scenario of which Rasulullah would be put into? Considering the other hadith sources that had aided this, considering who is narrating the hadith, considering in the way that the hadith was narrated, no, we reject this. We reject it. And Aisha, why didn't she leave Rasulullah if this was the case? If she really was taken as a 6-year-old, and if Rasulullah was a pedophile, astaghfirullah, then shouldn't the woman or the girl who is abused as a child be afraid of her abuser? Would she remain with him her entire life? Not just remain with him, she remained with him and always praised him. Aisha praised Rasulullah so much. Always, she never left. Why? Why didn't you leave me? You have the choice like everyone else. No, see, Aisha was a very smart girl. Now there is a narration in Al-Kafi that says she was 10 years old. But she wasn't like any 10-year-old, even if to say that's true. At this time, she used to know the lineage of the Arabs, a genealogist. 1/3 of the narrations or transmissions coming into the Sunni school of thought come from Aisha. She's a head of a whole school, 1/3 of it. She was a very smart woman in the way that she would want Rasulullah to be close to her as well. Now, the question poses itself, okay, this is how old she is, but what's the reason that Rasulullah married her? Why did he marry Aisha? There is a narration that she was married to another man. Again, this is a narration that puts doubt into her being 6 years old. See all these different narrations coming in against each other? That she was married to another man. Rasulullah liked her. He told Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr went, he broke up Aisha and her husband. Then he brought Aisha to come and marry Rasulullah. Again, something very logical. Rasulullah would not break up any couple, let alone someone for himself, let alone a young girl, let alone someone with this many wives already, let alone someone in his 50s, let alone someone like the greatest of all creation. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So what was the reason? Remember that thing I was saying about all the beards together? All the hairs, the different strands of hairs? One hair would be cut, but all the strands of hair together can pull the truck. Okay? Abu Bakr, at that time, if any Arab came, gave his daughter and put her into the hands of another man, if he said no, that's a problem. That's a tribal problem. I'm giving you my daughter. Rasulullah, in a very sensitive situation, he accepts. And Imam Ali alayhi salam speaks to Ammar about this. You know, for those who don't know about Aisha, why there is that difference of opinion, the main thing boils down to a war, the war of the camel. After Rasulullah passes away, there is a war that takes place 25 years later, when Imam Ali alayhi salam is the Khalifa. It's known as the war of the camel. In this war, it was Muslim versus Muslim. Imam Ali alayhi salam, with his warriors coming from Kufa. On the other side, Talha was Zubayr, who were companions of the Prophet, and Aisha, the wife of the Prophet. And so they had Muslims as well coming from Basra. Muslims versus Muslims. 20,000 Muslims died in that war. Muslims versus Muslims. We understand Muslims versus pagans, Muslims versus Jews, Muslims versus Muslims now. Politics became very dirty. And now you have to choose. Who do I choose? The wife of the Prophet or the brother of the Prophet? Who do I choose? If you stay in the middle and you don't choose anyone, you chose a side. You left someone who's right. One of them is right. So who do you choose? You know, when Rasulullah died, Umar took his sword out and said, if anyone says Muhammad has died, I will strike them with this sword. Then Abu Bakr told him, sit down. He said to everyone who used to worship Muhammad, Muhammad has died. But whoever used to worship Allah, Allah is everlasting. Let us take this lesson from Abu Bakr. Are you going to choose the one who Muhammad told you to follow, or who you think is right? And this is what Imam Ali alayhi salam told Ammar. He told him it's true. She is the wife of your Prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala married her to your Prophet in order to see who you will listen to, him or her. And in the battle of the camel, when they would tell Ammar, how dare you fight the wife of the Prophet? Ammar told them, the hadith Imam Ali told him, he said, yes, the wife of the Prophet, who Allah married to the Prophet to see who you're going to listen to, him or her. Who do you follow? If you truly follow Rasulullah, you follow the Beloved, you do what the Beloved asks of you. You don't pick and choose your parts of the religion. Now, coming back to the age, do you know how old Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam was when Imam Ali married her? Do you know how old? Because in the same year, Imam Ali alayhi salam, or within the following year, he married Sayyidah Zahra. So Rasulullah marries Aisha. In the same time frame, Imam Ali married Sayyidah Zahra. How old was Sayyidah Zahra at the time? Imam Ali alayhi salam is 25 years old. Sayyidah Zahra is 9 or 10 years old. And this is for sure. She's a very young age. How come no one speaks against Imam Ali? Why does everyone speak against the Rasul? Why? Do you feel the need to try to clarify Imam Ali's position? No one feels the need to defend the Imam. But Rasulullah, everyone wants to attack Rasulullah. He took all the arrows for Islam. Imam Jawad alayhi salam was how old? 9 years old when he got married. He was 9 years old, so was his wife. And it was consummated later. So, how do we understand this? How can they be married at this age? Okay, you have to understand the urf. You can't look at that and then think, okay, so a man in Somalia is 112 years old, he marries now a 13-year-old. No, because Rasulullah did it. No, because Imam Ali did it. No. What happened in Islam over the time was the Sharia was broken up into Sharia of law and Sharia of akhlaq when it's one. Sharia al akhlaq of ethics and the Sharia of law are together. If I'm going to live my life based on only law, it's not a life worth living. One has to apply the ethics of Rasulullah into the daily life. If now a marriage is to be built upon just the laws and the rights of the man and the woman, it's going to be an unhappy marriage. The woman will tell him, I want food now, I want a house now, I want everything now, and I'm not going to cook for you, I'm not going to clean for you, I'm only going to do what I'm supposed to do, which is be with you when you want me to be with you, and he tells her you can't leave the house. What kind of marriage is that? But when the akhlaq comes into it, we don't even have to get to that. When the akhlaq comes into it, as we're going to see how Imam Ali alayhi salam and Sayyidah Zahra's marriage was, a life built on divine beauty, a divine relationship. One has to learn everything. You can't just choose, oh, young age, okay. But still, understand the urf. We have to understand that that time was different to this time, and that the woman at that time matured, especially in the desert, matured much faster than a woman now. A woman of 9 or 10 years old, she was, you could say, maybe 15, 16, 17-year-old now. Not to mention her mental maturity, let alone physical. Washington Irving in the 1930s, wrote a book called The Life of Muhammad. In that book, he mentioned that Aisha was 9 years old. Let's just say that was true. But he didn't attack Rasulullah. Isn't that interesting? That all the enemies Rasulullah had, you would think that people would try to attack him for having a young wife, or would attack Imam Ali for having a young wife. It wasn't something to be ashamed of then, like it is now. It wasn't something to be ashamed of at that time. Even if it was true, let's say. You understand the order of each time, you realize where to put everything in its rightful place. You ask me personally, I'd say if a girl was 20 years old and not mature enough to marry, don't get married. If you're 20 years old. But if a girl is 16 years old and she's maturer than a 25-year-old, what's the problem? There actually isn't one. But again, you must look at the whole package. It's not just age. There's the compatibility, the akhlaq, their deen, if they engage you, if they attract you. You can't just take one lesson from the Prophet. It's a whole package. How old were Romeo and Juliet, our beloved heroes? How old were they? 14, 15 years old. They were 14 or 15 years old, Romeo and Juliet. Robert Epstein, he has a book called, the book is called The Case Against Adolescence. In this book, he provides evidence for how when you treat a child in a certain way, they'll remain a child, and if you treat them in a way that you would treat an adult, they will respond to you in that way. And he has evidence for that. That's something in itself. The case against adolescence. How someone can mature. Washington Irving, when he wrote about that, he said the women of the desert were precocious. Precocious, meaning they advance much faster. And this is, by the way, in so many places. No, King Edward I and King Edward II, how old were they? How old were their wives? King Richard II, the kings of England. Princess Isabel. And they were 9, 10, 11 years old. Then they were ready to be courted and taken to marry the king. No one speaks against the King of England, but everyone wants to. Juliet. Everyone loves Romeo and Juliet, but everyone wants to speak against Rasulullah. Why? Understand the order of the time. So even if Aisha was 10 years old, as Al-Kafi states, there is no problem with that, and don't feel defensive about it. But of course, that narration that we spoke of, and in the way that it was narrated, that's fabricated and that's not true. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam is 9, 10 years old, and people are coming to see her now. Now she's reaching the age of marriage, you see. This is the age at that time. A man, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, a very, very wealthy man. He wants Sayyidah Zahra. So he comes to Rasulullah, he tells him, Ya Muhammad, I want Fatima. I'll give Fatima as many camels as she wants, with the silk and the mabar shu. Right? He's trying to bribe her with his money. So Rasulullah doesn't care about this, but as a man of justice, he goes to Sayyidah Fatima and he asks her, are you interested in him? And she says no. Likewise, Abu Bakr approached Rasulullah and asked him if he could get to know Fatima. And Fatima once again said no. Likewise, Umar attempted. And Rasulullah would answer, I wait for the order from my Lord. I wait for the order from my Lord. So people, they began to gather around Imam Ali alayhi salam. They tell him, hey, why don't you go speak to Fatima? You go speak to her. And he'd be shy. Imam Ali was the bravest warrior, but he was very, very shy. Extremely shy. Extremely shy. You can imagine. You know, he was a warrior on the battlefield, but he was a very romantic poet at night. He's shy. He's saying, I don't have anything to give her. Who did he remind you of? Rasulullah. When he was asked about Sayyidah Khadija, Rasulullah said, I don't have anything to marry with. Imam Ali would say, I don't have anything to marry with. How can I go? Like, just go. Muhammad will understand. Go. So Imam Ali, he gathers up the courage, the most courageous man in history, gathers up the courage to speak for Sayyidah Fatima's hand. He goes to Rasulullah and he just stands there. But he doesn't say anything. And Rasulullah looks at him, and then Imam Ali leaves. The next day he comes back. And he stands there again. Rasulullah looks at him, Imam Ali looks at him, he can't say it. He leaves again. 2 days in a row. The third day, he comes once again. He stands there in front of Rasulullah. Rasulullah says, Ya Ali, are you okay? Naam, Ya Rasulullah, I'm okay. You want Fatima? He said it for him. He said it for him to relieve him of the embarrassment. So you can imagine, young, shy Ali says, Naam, Ya Rasulullah. He says, do you have anything to give her as dowry? I only have a few things. I have my shield. And Rasulullah gave him the shield. He said, I didn't have anything. Rasulullah told him, where's the shield I gave you? He says, here, but it's only worth 400 dirhams. Like, it's okay. So Rasulullah went to Sayyidah Fatima. And Jibreel told Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already married Fatima and Ali in the heavens. It's time to marry them on the earth. They are already married in the heavens, in the eyes of God. Rasulullah goes to Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, and he asks her, Ali has approached to speak to you. Do you accept? And she's also very shy. And for the first time, she doesn't reject, but she doesn't say yes either. She stays silent. That's where we get this from sukutuha ridaha. Right? That's from Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. She stayed silent, and Rasulullah knew, okay, she wanted it. So Rasulullah organized for the nikah ceremony. And they used the shield. Imam Ali alayhi salam sold the shield and he used the money as the dowry. So they're gathering, now they're doing this ceremony. And Rasulullah tells Imam Ali alayhi salam, go to the mosque. The people are gathering, a few people to come for the wedding ceremony. So Imam Ali alayhi salam goes to the mosque. At this time, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he wants to give Fatima a special gift. He gives her a wedding dress. Okay? Not like today's wedding dresses where it costs as much as the car, but a wedding dress. She's happy with this dress, but she gets a knock on the door the night before the wedding. There was a poor person, a young girl, and Sayyidah Fatima looks at her, and she's going to give her one of her old dresses, but she stops. She goes and takes the dress that Rasulullah gave her and gives her her own wedding dress before her wedding. Okay, this is a story, this is a narration. She gives her the wedding dress. Rasulullah comes and says, where's the wedding dress that I gave you? She says, I gave it away. Why? Because I was going to give her one of my old dresses. But then I remembered that ayah in Surah Al-Balad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. You will never reach righteousness until you give of that which you love. Right? She loved that dress. Her father gave it to her before her wedding. She gave it away. But subhanAllah, a dress was given to her from the heavens. And she wore that heavenly dress. And Imam Ali goes to the mosque, but then what did he see? Everyone there. The Ansar, the Muhajirin, everyone's gathered. They all want to celebrate the marriage of the daughter of the Prophet. Of course, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he invites everyone. He doesn't want to leave anyone not invited. And with the blessings of Rasulullah, everyone eats, everyone enjoys their time. And they would say afterwards, we had never been to a ceremony like this one. Rasulullah brings his grey horse. He tells Salman, so Salman, come here. You lead the horse. And he tells Fatima, get on the horse. And Salman takes the horse and he takes the horse to Imam Ali alayhi salam. But there's Fatima on the horse. How beautiful, can you imagine? And Rasulullah at this time, he's walking behind them and he keeps talking. Keep saying how fantastic of a wife Fatima is, how fantastic of a husband Ali is. He just keeps praising them. He walks behind, Salman walks in front with the horse. Sayyidah Fatima with her dress, her heavenly dress on the horse, takes her to Imam Ali. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammad wa alihi Muhammad. And they lived a very humble but prosperous life that we should aim all of us to live. There is no reason why two people, honestly, when they try to make us think that marriage is something that 100% is going to give us a headache in life, no, there's no reason for that. If all the husband wants is the betterment of the wife, and if all the wife wants is the betterment of the husband, why should they fight? You know, why should he ever lay a hand on her? Why should she ever lay a hand on him? Why? You know, Imam Ali alayhi salam and Sayyidah Fatima, they were the greatest marriage couple, quite like Sayyidah Khadija and Rasulullah in how they were with each other. Imam Ali swears by Allah, I never forced her to do anything she didn't like. I never angered her, and she never angered me, and she never disobeyed me. And when I would look at her, the sadness would leave my heart. That's something that's actually possible for us today. Growing up is I. Marriage is supposed to take away that ego, because then it's no longer I, it's we, you know, me and my wife, then it's me and my wife and my kids. Islam, that's what it wants. It wants that ego to keep getting smaller. No more I, me, my wife. Me, my wife, my kids. Me, my wife, my kids. My neighbor, his wife, his kids. And our neighbor, his wife, his kids. This feeling of brotherhood and ummah within Islam. It's there. Don't look at the Muslims. Look at Islam, what Islam says, and live that. Live that. You can live it. Don't look around you and look to the corruption that you're seeing in other relationships. Look to your leaders and what Islam says, and that's possible for your own life. That is. But then we ask, oh, now, how do we get married now? Or when should we get married now? Because now, unfortunately, and guys, forgive me for saying this, but I have to say this now. We postpone marriage till after our education. Why? You know, if Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam was here right now, she would do the exact same thing. She would not pursue the architecture degree and then marry Imam Ali after that. You can get an education and be married. I mean, that's the way of Islam, you know. This is corrupting society. The fact that people are waiting so long. Now the boy at 25, 26 years old is when he begins to look for a wife. Why? Because before that he doesn't have a house, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have a car. He needs to have all those things before he approaches a family. What happens to this guy by the age 25, 26? What's he seen? What's he done to himself? Who has he been with? How much haram has he committed? Why? I mean, the sisters are there. But the sisters, sometimes you think, I'm doing this degree for Imam Mahdi, so he can be happy with me, so when he comes I serve him. Imam Mahdi also wants you to marry. Imam Mahdi isn't happy with this. Neither is Sayyidah Fatima. Yes, be pious in everything. Be pious in marriage as well. Don't be pious only in putting up pictures on Facebook, or in crying, or in dua only. Act upon it in your life. A $15,000, $20,000 wedding in Dearborn is actually cheap. That's a cheap wedding. I mean, where's the piety now? Where's the piety? Or $5,000 mahar, and that's something that's cheap. $5,000 is cheap. Where's an 18-year-old guy going to get $5,000 from? You guys think that's cheap? That's not cheap. People don't get married because they don't have the money for mahar. How sad is that? You know, Rasulullah would get people married on anything that they had that could offer. One man, he had like an iron ring. He used that as a mahar. Another man, he asked him, what do you have that's not? He said, do you know ayahs of the Quran? Yes. Two ayahs, he taught them to his wife. That was the dowry. Piety counts there as well. Piety counts everywhere. Why this mahar thing? You know, my uncle, when his daughter was getting married, he did something I really liked. He said a line I really entertained. He said, I don't want anything for my daughter. I don't want to put a price on my daughter. I've done Quran, So the brother came, when they were getting married, before they cut the kitab, he's like, I have to give something. I have to give something. I can't just, I have to put some amount of money there. So my uncle told him, if you want to put amount of money, it's your choice, but I advise you don't, because it's really expensive. There'll be a lot of zeros. Okay, it's really expensive, you won't be able to afford it, but don't put anything, it's better for you. Okay, I really like that. Putting a price on someone, that's wrong. That's wrong. And it's blocking us from getting married. You see what happens? It all affects each other. If you don't get married at a young age, 18, 19, 20, and again I'm saying if you're mature, someone's not mature to get married, you can be 30 years old and not mature enough. If you are 18, 19 and you should be at 18, 19 years old. And you don't get married, and you leave that to age 24, 25, 26. First of all, sisters, you're making it harder for yourself in the older age, because you know how Arabs are. Okay? Second of all, it's leading to haram in society, corrupting the men, who have a harder time controlling desires than you guys do. And then by the time you do get married, how much corruption's already been filtered inside the minds of those who have taken so long to embrace their natural desires and tendencies and relationships. It's natural. They say Islam is forcing us to, it's imposing itself on us so we can't express ourselves. No, Islam says desire is something that's very rightful place. The problem is we're not using Islam anymore. They pursue an education, but it shouldn't be the priority of a marriage. There should be education and marriage, and if someone was forced to choose, I don't see why someone should be forced to choose. Islam says it. Islam says it. Whether we like it or not, Islam makes it very clear, and I think it's beautiful. We mentioned the hadith the other day. After I said it, a few people came up to me and wanted to question me about the hadith. But for those who were not here, a woman is sent by the Muslim woman to go to Rasulullah. And she tells him, the woman has sent me to you because they see that it's as if Allah has taken preference for the men over the women. You guys gather together on Friday, you do your Hajj, whereas we are at home. Why is that? And Rasulullah turns his whole face to his companions and says, have you heard a better question than this? Then he looks back to the woman and goes, Ya mra'a, ifhami. Understand, O woman, every single thing we as men do is equivalent to you being a companion. And I'll clarify what that means. But look how beautiful that everything the man does is equivalent to a woman just being a good companion. And there's wisdom behind this. A good companion because she is the center of all society. The qualities of the human being, the highest qualities in the human being are inside the woman. The care, kindness, selflessness. Those are, when we degrade a woman, we degrade of the human being. If the woman is corrupted, everyone is corrupted. If the woman is purified, everyone is purified because everyone's coming from the woman. When we say companion, all you have to do is be a good companion. It doesn't mean you don't do all that. You just have to be that. Then you have stuff to do. You're already accepted as much as us. When the Hajj day came to me, she told me, is all we do is be a good companion. I told her, no Hajj day. You do all the other stuff you want to do, but Allah is saying He accepts from you being a good companion as much as all my deeds. You give a lecture and I'll sit in the crowd. But Wallah, I don't be a good companion and give a lecture, Wallah. Wallah. In Hebrew, the word ragam means boon in Hebrew. In Arabic, what does womb mean? How do we say womb in Arabic? Rahm. Taken from Hebrew, rahm. Mercy is rahmah. It comes from there. The womb is rahmah. Now the woman manifests the divine name Al-Rabb. Al-Rabb is the name that is manifested by the woman. بتربي أولادها. She brings up the kids. بتربيهم. She nourishes them. She's the Rabb. That name from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inside the woman. What's demanded of the man, because the man, by the way, he can't do this. The man can't be a good companion. The focus, if it was on the man, he runs away to be a good companion. The woman's qualities can handle this. What's demanded of the man within Islam is to learn those qualities from the woman. But what happened was, because the woman saw that the man was rejecting these qualities and he's degrading them, instead of him imitating her, it was opposite, and she started imitating the man, and now we are in the situation that we are in. You see? The first mistake came from the man, not imitating those womanly qualities, which, by the way, he can never reach that spiritual perfection without them, that he must learn from the woman. There's no other place that he can get it from. Yet, he degrades that, and the woman, in seeing this, and seeing the spiritual power of the woman is very strong, but the physical power is also strong. And it leads those men who have not been able to control themselves into making the woman backlash, and now she starts imitating the manly way, the lower way, and she does away with her higher qualities. So Islam says, just focus on being a good companion, because I know how hard that is. Because I know how hard it is to be a good companion, and does not have the quality to be. You do it through your womb and your rahmah and your tarbiyah, society will be fixed. If you are corrupted, we all are doomed. So, we should respect those qualities, that without them we cannot reach God, and that they are in the woman. The poet Jami' says lovely few lines which we can relate here on the stance of Islam to the woman. He said, I said to my rosy cheeks lovely, okay? I said to my rosy cheeks lovely, oh you with bud-like mouth, why do you keep hiding your face like flirting girls? So she smiled and said, unlike the beauties of your world, with my veil I am seen, but without it I'm hidden. With my veil I'm seen, the real me, but without it I'm hidden. No one can see me without it. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi tayyibin at-tahirin.